Hi, I'm Ricky Persicos and today I'm applying for the advertised role as the head strength and conditioning coach for the New Zealand handball team. During my presentation I will cover who am I, handball in New Zealand, my vision of handball in New Zealand, the game of handball in the eyes of a strength and conditioning coach, my strategic plan in order to reach team goals, and High Performance Sport NZ's strategic plan and how I relate to that. So who am I? I'm a 23-year-old male currently living in Dunedin but was born and raised in Nelson. I attended Nelson College before heading overseas on a gap year where I was an assistant PE teacher at a primary school. Once I moved back to New Zealand, I shifted to Dunedin and last year completed a physical education degree majoring in exercise prescription. I'm now currently working towards obtaining a postgraduate diploma from the Otago Polytech, and I'm currently working towards also becoming an ASCA accredited strength and conditioning coach. I come from an extensive sporting background competing in rugby, touch, basketball, football, rowing, cricket, volleyball and athletics, all up until year 13 at high school. Outside of the gym, I like to stay active through adventure sports such as snowboarding and wakeboarding, and I'm also a keen fisherman and diver. My professional philosophy is something that is deeply ingrained within my programming, and is something I believe in immensely. And that is, as strength and conditioning coaches, it is about mastering the basics. With sound prescription and good technique, we can increase performance and decrease injury risk. There are currently 500 active players in New Zealand competing all throughout the South and North Island. There are monthly training camps held in Wellington for the top teams, and the men's team finished last in the 2018 Asian Men's Championships in January. Players have a good tactical and technical ability, but need the physical component to take their game to the next level. Here's a short video of the highlights from New Zealand vs India in January, and I'll relate back to this during my needs analysis of the sport. We can see from that video that the main energy systems used would be aerobic when they're running around the court, with periods of high intensity movements when jumping and throwing. If we do a movement breakdown, we can see that on average players cover 1,777 metres per game. Of that, 170 metres is high speed running or running, and 90 metres is sprinting. There are 32 bouts of high speed running lasting on average 2.3 runnings, 2.3 seconds, and the average player does upwards of 20 to 30 jumps per game. This info can be used when planning training during the specific phase of periodization. Players need to be conditioned for the game they play, so train how they move in games. My potential role is the head strength and conditioning coach for the New Zealand handball team. As a strength and conditioning coach, I believe I have two main goals. The first being injury prevention, and the second being performance enhancement. The most prevalent injuries in handball is an ACL tear, ankle sprains, and shoulder overuse syndromes. So how can we try and prevent these injuries? Through prehab. The main cause or mechanism of injury for an ACL injury is jump land mechanics. When landing in knock knee position or valgus, knee abduction and femoral adduction causes great torsion on the knee and leads to ligament strains. By teaching players correct land mechanics, i.e. absorbing force first, we can teach them how to land correctly and hopefully dissipate all forces. Load management can be used for shoulder overuse syndrome, so we can limit the amount of throws a player has per week depending on how their shoulders are and how strong they are. Physical monitoring can be used through gym lifts and fitness testing to see where players are at and where they need to start their programs. And movement screening can be used to look at any deficiencies and muscle imbalances that players might need to work on before we move on to the next step. Performance enhancement in handball. So the increased physical ability leads to more opportunities to score or have possession. The ability to throw the ball harder and more accurate equals better pass completions. And a greater rate of force development means players can jump higher and faster to intercept, shoot, and block shots. Increased fitness equals greater performance for longer. How can we do this? Through velocity-based training. Velocity-based training is used to quantify bar speed in meters per second. It's all well and good prescribing power exercise for players, but what if they are not done at a fast enough speed to reap the benefits of doing those exercises? Is this transferable? I suggest not. GymAware takes the guesswork out of this. GymAware is an accelerometer device produced by Kinetic Performance. It looks at bar speed and shows on an iPad the speed zone in which a player is hitting. As we can see in this diagram, certain velocities relate to different types of training. We can see that starting strength is greater than 1.5 meters per second, and speed strength is 1 to 1.5 meters per second, which is where we want our players training. Also crucial to performance is core stability. In the video I showed before, players would jump, get knocked, and then still have to complete the throw. The ability to keep our trunk nice and firm and still be able to create power through that kinetic chain starts from the core. So my strategic plan going forward. Initial player consultations, including injury history, physical monitoring, including gym lifts, jumping and running, and training plans, ironing out when players and how long players can train for during the weeks. Sport and individualized specific periodized programs, linear progression towards tournaments. These are two that I found on the internet, but there are also 2020 Olympic qualifying tournaments this year and next year for the men's and women's teams. And on a week-to-week basis, contact time with players for Skype and face-to-face to ensure training is going well, for them to ask any questions or to give them any new resources, and trainings at monthly team training camps to monitor progression. So High Performance Sport NZ have a strategic plan they call P2P, or Pathway to Podium, and that is for all sports that are competing at the Olympics. Although New Zealand has never competed at the Olympics in handball, it's definitely a goal that they should achieve in the near future. So if we look at this strategic plan, there are 3 goals. 1, podium performance, which is pretty straightforward. Play well enough to podium at the Olympics. 2, system sustainability. This is a big one for New Zealand handball. As there is only 500 active players, we need to make sure as many players are playing as often as possible. That means injury prevention is critical. Aspiration. Players need to aspire to play not only for the New Zealand handball team, but also at the Olympics. These strategic drivers that back all 3 of these goals are people. For me, this is getting the right people, whether that's through talent identification for players, or whether that's the hiring process, such as this. Culture and environment. Creating an environment that is conducive to top performance. Planning and monitoring. Planning around Olympic qualification tournaments so that peak performance occurs. And monitoring players for any injuries or overtraining. Immersion and integration. We need to get as many players into training camps as possible. And collaboration from coaching staff to complete tasks. Innovation. Not being afraid to try something new. And intelligence. Making sure everything we do is backed by science, evidence-based practice. So why me? I have a genuine passion for strength and conditioning and furthering my education. I have the right tools to fit into this environment. I have a good understanding of the demands of handball at the elite level. I won't overcomplicate things. I won't change too much too soon. And I will implement personalised prehab and rehab programs which lead to less time away from the game. Thank you.